you're good friends with David Lynch, also, especially after writing Transcendence and engaging with David Lynch on that level and others. And there's a storyteller that has wowed us with the cruelty of the characters he portrays, and also how cruelly these characters relate to each other and the world around them, right? I mean, that's my amateur, my very amateur critique of David Lynch's work. Oh boy. Anyway, I think I just got myself into trouble. So there's a storyteller that tells a particular brand of story. Is there in the storytelling process a need to sort of get these monsters out there and say, look, here who we are. Let's take a look at who we are and an honest look at who we are and what we're capable of, so that we're aware of it?
I think the wonders of being a storyteller is like the wonders of being an actor. It enables you to inhabit worlds that you would not necessarily choose to inhabit in your daily life. That you can enter the world of a murderer, a serial killer,
a lover,
victim,
a hero,
a lover.
Cyrano de Bergerac.
Exactly. Somebody who just has the
They
words.
don't all have to be bad.
That's right. That's right. You can be a lover. You can be a graduate. You can be Mrs. Robinson.
A test pilot.
Anybody you want.
Sure.
And that's the wonderful thing. And yes, imagination is necessary, but we pull upon deep things that are within ourselves. David is a wonderful guy, and where he got those dark movies from, I don't know. He's quite one of the nicest people I know. And it's very funny because we did some book readings together. He has his wonderful book called Catching the Big Fish, which summarizes a lot of his experience. I had my book on transcendental meditation, which his foundation has promoted, which has done the most wonderful work on people who know a lot about adversity, combat-related veterans
PTSD,
with
sure.
PTSD, and street workers, children of the night, and children in violent schools, and on and on and on. He's chosen groups of people who suffer terrible adversity, and he has brought transcendental meditation to them with great benefit. But back to the story, when we went around doing book readings together, he would say to the audience that when he first started doing movies, some of his movies were rather dark in their themes, and people suggested that maybe he should consult a psychiatrist. And then he would point to me and say, now I travel with one.
Well, there you go. Not a bad thing. Not a bad thing. Last thing that I want to talk about, Norm, is the question of psychological profile, right? So I'm trying to formulate the question as I'm putting it together in my mind here. So I don't want to. I want to get away from murderers and all that. I want to get to more sublime characterizations. So a narcissistic personality, for example. Does it have outward traits? Like, is it useful for writers or directors or actors to investigate what the condition is in order to then backtrack to the behavior? Because all human beings have an element of some diagnosable emotional disorder.
Well, every type of person is fascinating in his or her own right.
Yeah.
And of course, most of us are a mixture of different types of people. If you look at the narcissistic personality, it's worth going back to the Greek myth of Narcissus, who was this very, very handsome man who saw his reflection in a pool and was so intrigued that he just reached out, and as he touched the surface of the pool, the ripples disturbed the reflection. So he would wait until it came back again. And he was so taken with his own reflection that he was turned by the gods into the flower, which is now called a narcissus. And the nymph who fell in love with him could only echo the words that she heard, and she was called Echo. And so the narcissistic person is intrigued with his or her own image and can only tolerate somebody who can echo their words. I think people with that type of structure, which comes about for whatever reason, and we could sit here for 2 hours and discuss why, and we're not going to, but people who have
I don't
that...
know, do we have 2 hours, anybody? Okay.
People who have that kind of structure, they miss out on a lot, because they miss out on the authentic engagement that happens between people, which is possible when you can let your ego go for a moment and let the other person in, or feel the other person's feelings, empathize. And that is part of the joy that relationships bring. And if you aren't able to access that, you're missing out on a lot in life.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that is life, isn't it? I mean,
it's a part of life.
That's
yes.
a big part of life, is how we relate to one another and the experiences that we're able to derive from that interaction. I mean, that's what we want love and money and all those good things for, is so that we can have more and more and more of those interactions, or while we go off on adventures or participate in life.
And maybe we can have those interactions today or tomorrow, and we don't need all that money.
That's right.
Maybe we can just reach out to somebody and have a kind word or a hug or a kiss or whatever. And
on the subway in New York, just any stranger. Kidding.
You don't have to have all that money, but the idea that you have to go and earn all that money before you can reach out and enjoy somebody else is a dangerous trap to fall into.
Sure. Well, I certainly wasn't implying it. Norm, is there anything that you would like to add? Any parting thought on this or any other subject? Because it's not just for me to come up with the questions. Of course, the irony is that it would be a shame if I were to conclude the interview after what you just said, and not give you an opportunity to share as well.
Well, I think you've asked such interesting questions, because we've really been talking about the human condition.
Mm-hmm.
Adversity is just part of the human condition, albeit an important part. The adversity that comes when we fail, the adversity that comes when we don't feel we've met our goals, or we lose a loved one, or we contemplate our own mortality, or we suffer some pain or some illness or whatever. And so I think that how we process that adversity is really important, because some people can really get into being a victim, and that's not an empowering stance to take. And others can somehow take the lemons and turn them into lemonade, and that's really what the book seeks to explore. So I often am reminded of, I think we could go on, and I'm often reminded of a quote. I think that George Bernard Shaw, who was a great speaker, and he would speak at meetings, and the meetings would go on and on, he often concluded by saying, the subject isn't exhausted, but the audience is. So maybe we should leave it at that.
Perfect, Norm. Thanks so much for taking part in this. And I love the cover art. I mean, any actor out there, anybody that's trying to pursue a career in the profession will understand the cover of one fish looking at the other, right?
I love that cover, and I've never had such a good one, because what's happening is a bunch of goldfish are swimming in one direction, and then one goldfish is swimming in the other direction. And so many people have said to me, I feel like that one goldfish that's swimming in the wrong direction.
Sure.
Or maybe he just knows something that the others don't know. Who knows?
It's brilliant, and it's very tasteful. Very nice. So, Dr. Norman Rosenthal, thanks so much for the time here with us. Really, really appreciate it.
I've enjoyed it. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thanks. And guys, we're entering the callbacks for the Match series this week. And And we're going to be entering pre-production for Match, so updates will be coming on the site. Thanks so much, everybody. Bye.
Good night.